Welcome to episode 88 of the Broadway Shuffle, and boy, is this going to be a good one. We've got all four of us back together again. Conrad, Clayton, and Zyler are here. I am Brennan. If you are listening for the first time, welcome to the Broadway Shuffle. We are glad you are here. You know, we run some fun analytics on our YouTube channel. We've noticed that 53% of people that come to our channel that listen regularly do not subscribe. So if you are a regular listener, we are so glad you are here. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if this is your first time, we would love for you to be a part of our show. And thank you for tuning in. And shout out to our loyal subscribers from day one. We appreciate you and we see you. And we thank you so much for all your support. We're going to get into linebackers today, continue our position preview. But first, Z, I know you've got our first word of the episode.
Yeah, probably going to be the most unique first word we have for the 2025 rendition of the Broadway Shuffle. But my word for this episode is Shahan, and that's a nod to Shahan Jayaraja, who wrote an article for CBS Sports this morning that I thought, or I guess it'll be yesterday if you're listening to this today, that I thought really was top notch. I'm not a journalist. I don't write for a living. I don't do any of that. But he truly did a wonderful profile on Texas Tech, Lubbock, Joey McGuire, James Blanchard, and Cody Campbell, and how all five of those kind of intersect to form what is becoming one of the most anticipated seasons for your Texas Tech Red Raiders in probably 15 plus years. Shahan did truly a magnificent job kind of capturing what it is to be a Texas Tech Red Raider and what that looks like. I thought one of the most poignant things that he wrote is just kind of the trifecta that's forming this three-headed monster in Lubbock. It's a washed-up NFL lineman, a former high school coach, and a fire hydrant repairman. And that's, James Blanchard, that's Cody Campbell, and that's Joey McGuire. And I think for a lot of people from Lubbock, that's a really neat representation about where a lot of people come from here, and a lot of neat representation about Texas Tech students in general. You come from a lot of different backgrounds, and you come to try new things, strive to do new things, and find different ways to accomplish stuff because you have felt like you're behind some of your peers, behind Texas, behind A&M, and on a resource level. So how do we find loopholes? How do we find ways to be competitive? And I think it's a really, really neat article. It's incredibly complimentary. It's very honest. Definitely worth a read. It's 5,000 words, so it's a 25 minute read, but well worth the time. It was a great profile, and shout out to CBS for being willing to produce a piece of content like that. And it's not the standard journalism that you're going to see this time of year. So go check it out if you haven't. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. I know that wasn't quite the eloquent recap that most people were looking for, but I was moved by the article actually, and thought he did a really good job.
Did you cry?
I cry every time I think about Texas Tech sports. So yeah, both. We've talked about this. It'll move you to tears either way. Yeah.
You are not the only one on this podcast, Conrad. I know we were texting earlier about it, but I sent the article in our group. I read it earlier this morning, and I was just. By the time I got to the end, I mean, even the Evie Mae's barbecue, I really have not read an article like that brought sports and Lubbock into one from a national pundit, right? It was phenomenal to see how much attention to detail they actually went into about Lubbock and about the growth of Lubbock, in South Lubbock and the new loop and everything going on, and then trying the barbecue. And it was just a phenomenal piece to read. So it went beyond just what Tech has done athletics, and I felt like as an alumni, I felt proud to be a Texas Tech alumni. I mean, I'm sure you felt the same way.
Well, one thing I think it did was it helped you feel, in a sense, what it's like to be in Lubbock, what it's like to have been a part of this. Because I think people have seen Texas Tech and seen, okay, they spent all this money and largely funded by several individuals that have made the difference, as mentioned by Zyler, a washed up offensive lineman. I don't really think that's the way I would refer to Mr. Campbell, but or Chairman Campbell. But it's crazy that this article was put together, and it just makes you feel proud to be a Red Raider. I mean, that's really so much of it. And obviously, Zyler and Clayton, y'all growing up in Lubbock, I mean, maybe it hit home different for you, but it was, as a person who lived in Lubbock for 4 years and then, or during college, and then 2 years after, it was just a really cool thing to read. It was something that you could almost feel the article as well. I don't know if that makes sense, but one thing that really stuck out to me was when he talked about the ringleader and Kirby Hocutt, and it was talking about how Kirby Hocutt wishes he had saved the voicemail. Joey McGuire, then an assistant at Baylor, had gotten a hold of his number. The two sides had yet to make a real contact or hold a formal interview. And then it says, in quotes, "I'm not going to be able to live with myself if I don't make this phone call." Hocutt requires McGuire, saying, "I just want you to know you need to hire me as your head football coach." I can't even tell you how much I want to open a request from AT&T to find that voicemail, because that would be absolute gold if we had that. Like, could you imagine like a third down and that being played in the Jones or something like that? Or just, say we go to Arlington this year and it all ends up the way we want it to. That would just be so cool to have. And I think that was crazy that Joey made that phone call. But it doesn't surprise me knowing what we know about Joey, but just was really enjoyed reading the article, and it made me proud to be a Red Raider.
Clayto, Lubbock legend, Lubbock local, Clayton Anderson. Thoughts? Was it kind of weird, like reading a national article about Lubbock in a positive way? Because we saw the Steve Sarkisian comments on Third and Longhorn, the worst podcast ever, and it was, talking about how he thought he was going to go to Lubbock when he was going to Austin, and it was kind of a slight dig at Lubbock. Did it feel positive? I mean, did it make you proud as a Lubbock native to read something positive about Lubbock, Texas? We don't get that very often.
Yeah, definitely. It's cool to see. And I feel like Lubbock always gets the rap of like Lubbock maybe in like the 90s or the early 2000s still. And like no one's been here since. And they still assume it's like which I mean, it is in the middle of nowhere, but it's its own city, like it's not like it's not just a desert, desolate nothing. So it was cool to see someone that's not related to Tech actually say that, because I feel like it's always Tech fans that are like fighting back, or Lubbock locals. So of course, as someone who grew up in Lubbock, it was cool to read that. It's also crazy reading about how Lubbock just ended at 82nd Street, because I mean, I guess
that's where your house used to be. Like you were on the outskirts of town, kind of.
Yeah, like my parents lived.
You were in the boonies.
Yeah, south of that. So I guess they live what used to be the country, which is crazy. But I mean, and now, it goes all the way to like 130th. So
yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah. The growth is wild. It's, I think one of the things that always bothers me just from an intellectually honest standpoint is when, people from Stillwater or Waco or Manhattan or Lawrence rag on Lubbock. It's like, we're the same size as all you combined. Like it's a much bigger city than most people realize. And I'm not saying Lubbock's perfect. It's far from that, but there's a lot of really great things about living here. I love living here. It's awesome. My wife would never let me leave here, so I'm stuck and I'm going to make the most of it. But yeah, it's fun. We love our time here in Lubbock, and it is underrated as a college town, underrated as a place to live after school. And I thought Shahan did a really good job describing that and kind of explaining what that's like.
What a
cool to see.
Speak for yourself, man. It's absolutely perfect.
Don't make Zyler laugh. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube and wondering, like, why does Zyler look so weird? It's because you had a mouth surgery and you can't smile. You got stitches in your mouth.
No,
Here you are giving the first word on the Broadway Shuffle.
Yeah, I got a bone graft and had some other stuff done. So any sort of extemporaneous mouth movements is just not going to be happening for me tonight. So any laughter is going to look very odd. So please avoid examining this part of the broadcast.
Also, your vocabulary is just phenomenal. What you said, poignant, I think, and whatever that word was.
Something in there. I'm trying to make up for the lack of facial movement here. Yeah, overcompensating with some vocab.
The only way he talked about how great Lubbock was, but he also talked about how great Texas Tech was, and I think Zyler's vocabulary is a testament to the quality of education you get at Texas Tech University.
Exactly right. You're exactly right.
I would.
Yeah, that's also another thing that really does bother me about the perception of Texas Tech. Like it is a good education, and I just don't understand why people. I mean, people are like, it's a party school. It's like every school's a party school.
Yeah,
like I don't think that's very an accurate perception of Texas Tech. To be honest,
my GPA was above a 2.0 in high school, shockingly, and he was like, "Don't let it go too high, or you won't get into Texas Tech." And that my dad's an alumni of Texas Tech, and that's the only place I applied to go. So I was like, "Well, all right, Dad, I guess I won't do my homework tonight." It works out great, and I love the university. But even within former alumni, they had that joke, So it is it is an unfortunate reality that people think that. I don't think anymore.
It's inaccurate.
It is inaccurate.
I fully believe it's inaccurate.
Yeah, I agree. But
Brennan, the other thing that it transitions us though is like how much more pressure. It feels like Texas Tech to me, and I know they're the most interesting team to me every year because I root for them. But from a national perspective, Texas Tech feels like the most interesting team in the Big 12 by a significant margin. I know there's other interesting storylines. You've got Avery Johnson, Jalen Daniels. You've got the TCU resurgence. What's Baylor going to do? Does Utah bounce? But none of them, I think, are as nationally compelling as oil baron funds, defense, and new roster. They go all in on 2025. Can they get over the hump? The team that, Shahan talked about it on a video later. He's like, all the teams in Texas have felt like they've had their moments since 2010. It's been, the RG3 era for Baylor. You had Case Keenum in Houston with, when they defeated OU to start the season, they Ed Oliver and all that. You had TCU made the national title. Texas has made the playoff. A&M had Menzel. You feel like Tech has been the one Texas program that just hasn't really had their moment in 15 plus years. And just the whole storyline, the buildup around it, it's got me really excited for the season. And it transitions as well into what I think will be one of the most crucial units for that success, and that's your linebacking core. Your defense was not very good last year. This was the only unit that I thought performed at least admirably in some situations. I don't know how you guys feel about this, and maybe we can talk about expectations before we get into the linebacker room, but I'm just really excited for the story that's building around this season. I think it's got one of the best setups of any season that Tech has had in a really, really long time.
Well, I was actually talking to my dad about this at dinner, and he was asking all about the article. We were talking about the article and the pressure, and he was like, man, the pressure's like Lubbock this is getting attention. And when you look at what ESPN has written about Texas Tech, CBS, the preseason top 25 rankings, which you have not been in a long time, and here they are, Texas Tech firmly in the top 20. Yeah, dude. I mean, the pressure's on. That's just a fact. Like, you can't take it, and it's a good thing. I mean, you want to be in this position. And it is, even David Bailey in that article was like, I feel the pressure. Like, I know there's pressure to win here. And that's fine. That's great. We want that. But Clay, I mean, getting specifically to the defense and the linebackers as we continue our position preview series, this group had I want to say like mixed year last year, and you return all of them. We obviously had a great conversation with Jacob Rodriguez. If you have not seen that episode, go check it out in our conversations tab at the Broadway Shuffle. And he was phenomenal, but Ben Roberts, we were expecting him to make a huge jump from his great freshman campaign. Didn't necessarily get, the elevated success we thought. Bryce Ramirez, John Curry, all these guys coming back though. They've got a podcast too, good camaraderie together as a unit. But expectations for these guys to improve as a group. I know Jacob's great, but what are your thoughts coming into 2025 on the linebacker room, and what do you need to see from them, as we talked about with the defensive line, to kind of be that second gear, but also be able to cover the pass, which was a problem last year?
Yeah, I feel like the linebacker unit this year is like definitely one of the least flashy units on the entire team just because of the lack of movement. But I think that's a sign that the coaches have a lot of faith in this group. They could have easily brought someone in. It's really easy to process guys nowadays. Like if there was a player who they weren't comfortable playing on this defense, then, they easily could have been out of town and replaced them with another transfer in the portal. So I think it's really encouraging that they didn't do that and they feel confident about this group. And I mentioned it last time, but I feel like Jacob Rodriguez, like sneaky, could be one of the best players on the team, but he's definitely being overshadowed by some of the newcomers and the new additions. So to have him in the group, I've never played football myself, but I assume it's more difficult to play linebacker if you're playing with a worse defensive line or a line as bad as we had last year. So I would assume you see improvements on the defensive line this year that should hopefully help the linebackers behind them.
That sounds accurate. Like I don't think you need to play football to make that assessment. I think you're probably right. I don't know. I mean, I've never played D line or linebacker either. I'm 5'7", 150, but probably
150.
Maybe 165. I gotta weigh myself. I'll let you know. I'll let you know next episode. Or actually, I'll be right back. So Conrad, I mean, when you think about Jacob, obviously a great leader, a glue guy. He's like the definition of a glue guy. It's imperative that he has another great season. Even with all the new additions, you need this room to be better.
Yeah, you do, and like Clayton said, they could have easily brought someone in if they wanted to. But I think another year with these guys. I mean, Ben Roberts was only a sophomore last year. Obviously, he didn't have the sophomore jump that we would have hoped for, but he still has all the talent that we saw when he was a freshman in 2023, right? So he can still make that jump. He's still got that ability, and I think he will in Coach Wood's defense. But even thinking about Jacob, I mean, he really he's not the guy that came in from the outside this offseason like a David Bailey, Romello Height, Lee Hunter, all these guys. But I think he makes me feel because he played so well on a defense that was not very good, right? Like he did a lot of good things for you. He kept you in a lot of games just with his hustle play and his leadership. And so I think with Jacob coming back, I think that's going to really. I think people should look around, even these new guys that are coming in, and see, hey, there's this guy behind me, number 10. He did it for Texas Tech last year and the year before that. I mean, he's been a part of this program for a long time. And so thinking about Jacob being there, I'm really encouraged by that. Would love to see John Curry and Bryce Ramirez take another step. I think John Curry has a lot of talent. I really do think he could be. I mean, I'm not saying he would replace Ben, but he could definitely push Ben, or not Jacob necessarily, but push Ben for some playing time. So this unit's not as flashy, like you said, but I do think this unit is going to be better than it was last year, just with the experience that comes in.
Yeah, Conrad, to your point on John Curry, I mean, John Curry graded out better than Roberts did last year. Now,
Mm-hmm.
neither of them graded out particularly well. Jacob Rodriguez grades out exceptionally well. He's first
Yeah.
team All Big 12, 127, like absolute unit. He can pass rush, he can cover, he can tackle, does all the things. The thing that really nuked Ben Roberts' grade last year is an atrocious coverage grade. He just really struggled in man assignments and zone assignments. Was that he was just not quite there yet. That's where Curry has not even been good. He's just better than what Roberts did. And that's where I think Curry's going to push Roberts in my mind. I think
Yeah.
if Roberts is big, he's 6'3", 240. He's like a weird tweener. It's almost like that's the size of like an edge rusher. And you've got him playing middle linebacker. You almost wish he was 6'3", 220. Something he just needs to be able to move a little bit more laterally. And then I don't want to forget about Bryce Ramirez. If you remember back to Joey's first year before the NC State game, Bryce Ramirez was playing really, really well. He would line up off the edge. He would line up in the backfield. He was one of your better players on the defensive side of the ball, and he's been derailed by injuries the last 2 seasons. Now, does he come back and return to that 2023 or 2022 form? That's always the question. Are they the same player? But that's another guy that I'm not maybe expecting a ton out of, but I wouldn't be shocked if he pushes for starting minutes at some point during the season, if he's back to being fully healthy, because that's what he was doing when Rodriguez even was here. So interesting room. You've got a lot of pieces to work with. You've just got to find somebody to step up and be just a good second option to Rodriguez. He's a top tier linebacker in this conference. He'll be one of the best, if not the best. You just need somebody that can be a top half linebacker in the conference to go alongside him.
We asked this question for the defensive line, like how good does this group need to be? Does it need to be the best group? Does it need to be average? Same question here for the linebackers. I mean, can we get away in terms of expectations being Big 12 championship? Can we get away with this group being average, below average, or do they need to be excellent? Like where does this group fall in expectations on needing to be great for your team's success?
I think the floor for this unit is just average because of Jacob.
Mhm.
Like I think that's how good Jacob is. So I think that's the absolute floor, assuming Jacob did what he did last year, which he had a fantastic year. But if he just does what he did, I mean, or even close to it, you're going to have an average unit, and I think that's going to be. I wasn't on the defensive line episode, but if you have the defensive line that we all think you're going to have, and you just have an average linebacking group, man, I think you're gonna I think that's gonna work out pretty well for you. So that'd be I would say it needs to be average, and I think that's already what it's gonna be. Clayton, do you have any do you think it needs to be better than average?
No, I'd probably agree with you. Like, as long as you're like serviceable, I guess it comes down to what you're saying. Like, as long as the other guy next to Rodriguez is serviceable, like that will be fine. Of course, it'll be nice if they're, excuse me, if they're better in coverage, but you would hope that the defensive line would be able to get some pressure. And then I'm really confident in Roberts, Rodriguez, and Curry in stopping the run. So as long as they're okay or good, I think the defense can be good enough to go to the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, I think it's contingent upon, what does the defensive line end up looking like? And then I think more importantly, what does your secondary end up looking like? Does the secondary, are they just kind of better than last year? Are they a lot better than last year? Like how much man coverage are we going to be asking Roberts to play again this year? How many zone assignments is he going to have? How long is he going to have to cover? So if some of those other units are better, I think you can really hide being average in those spots. If we're not getting pressure and we're not able to lock down one-on-one on the outside and play some of those press concepts, I don't know that you can get away with that. How much are they going to have to make up for? Jacob made up for a lot last year. He covered up a lot of mistakes. You think about all the turnovers he was forcing. He covered up some of the errors and the deficiencies of the defensive line. What do those other units do to potentially elevate this group? I think that's exactly what Clayton and Conrad are saying. So that'll kind of be like all these units. It's contingent upon what those other groups decide to do.
Yeah, and a big part of this too that I just was thinking is, with Sheil Wood and the trust that he has with this group, and him and Jacob building a great relationship early, and what the scheme will look like. Is he going to move Ben more too? Like you said, Z, maybe he moves him kind of blitzing more, and has John Curry come in on what they feel like will be passing downs on a coverage 3rd and long situation. We just saw it so much last year where there was a lot of people looking lost. It was guys open over the middle, missed assignments, 80-yard touchdowns against.
Stop. That's in the past.
It's in the past, but it still happened. You gotta improve on it, and I think that it'll be interesting to see that group in those situations, because teams are going to have to understand if the defensive line is that good. Like, they're not going to be able to just run all over us. Hopefully next year, they're going to try to exploit mismatches in the passing game, and that was a big area last year. And so I do feel like we will hopefully see improvement early, but I feel like Sheil Wood also knows that, right? I mean, this is a very good coordinator that is going to scheme, I think, really well. That's what he did so well at Houston last year. That'll be interesting to see how he comes out and uses these guys too.
Yeah, Brennan, I think that's a really good point. We haven't seen Sheil Wood's scheme in action for Tech. What is it going to look like? How is it going to be a little bit different? It's not going to be the same as what DeRuyter was doing. And so there's going to be some differences. Is that ultimately end up being good for Roberts, good for Rodriguez? Maybe some guys are better in certain schemes than others. You see that all the time, where good college players are sometimes a product of really good schemes. You think back to the Oklahoma State defense. Last time you were shut out as a program, all those guys came back the next year, and that defense wasn't anything close to what it was like after their coordinator left for Ohio State, Jim Knowles. And so we'll see. I think DeRuyter was fine. What does the scheme look like with Rodriguez? What is he asked to do? That'll be a really interesting point.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. This group, I'm looking forward to watching them. I'm happy you have all 4 returning, and the camaraderie they bring. As I said, I think this will be a group we don't have to worry about too much. Yeah, I just have a hunch. So, I don't think I'm not too stressed about the linebacker group.
Let me ask you this: how would you rank them in importance of what you need to be good? How would you rank them for all of them?
Like out of what?
Everything,
like
offense,
D-line. No, just defense. Like D-line, linebackers, and secondary. How would you rank them in order of importance? I'm assuming D-line would be 1.
I would say
I'm
third.
assuming second. I'm assuming secondary would be second. Ironically, and then linebackers would be 3rd.
If you could break it out, I think I do cornerbacks 2, safeties 3,
okay.
And then if you include the nickel as a linebacker, depending on how you qualify that, it's still probably 4th.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
To me, it's like so if you do any sort of NFL positional value studies, like if you look at what salary caps are devoted to, linebackers are really only noticeable when they're either really, really bad or they're really, really good. There's like a really massive, if you think about that bell curve, it's huge. Like the drop off between 80th to the 40th percentile, not necessarily noticeable. Now you go from 95th percentile, that's where you either have to be really, really good or really, really bad for the unit to be noticeable. And so hopefully it's noticeable because it's really, really good. But as far as having difference makers there, and I know it's not the NFL, it's really hard to get to that level where it becomes more important than defensive line, cornerbacks, other positions like that.
Well, and even that may be part of the reason why, because so much of what Texas Tech does from an evaluation standpoint, really does seem to mimic the NFL. And so that may be why the the powers that be decided, hey, we've got Jacob Rodriguez, all Big 12 linebacker, fantastic player coming back, should be better in this year, this year, which is, I mean, maybe not better, but just the same. We just don't need to invest any funds there. That could be what they were thinking.
They probably had to invest quite a bit to keep him. I mean, that would be something that you have to say. But
sure.
If they felt the need to add to the room, they would have.
Exactly.
Saying. Yeah, because they addressed every other area. They felt the need.
Literally every other position.
Other position. Yeah,
well,
this is the only position
quarterback.
Except
no, you still took a quarterback. You took Mitch Griffiths.
Did he just get married?
Oh yeah, he did.
Griffiths?
Yeah, he did.
He just got married, right? Did I see that correctly? No,
I don't know. You weren't there.
I feel like Mitch would be a great interview.
Let me double check. Let me fact check myself real quick. I think I'm pretty sure.
Griff's love life on the Broadway Shuffle.
Dude, come on,
Brennan Baxter.
Maybe he'll come on his honeymoon. Congrats to Libby Griffs for having the coolest. Oh no, his sister got married. Congrats to Libby.
Congrats to Mitch and his sister.
Congrats.
Who did not get married.
No.
Congrats to the family.
Yeah.
Brennan, that's a little bit weird, buddy.
The family's married. So I thought I saw something, but it wasn't him. So I apologize, Mitch. I hope you find love soon enough. He's so come on the show, Mitch, and tell us who you're dating and when you're getting married.
We should have him on the show and just ask him, hey, what's it like to be in Lubbock after being in where was he before? Wake Forest.
Wake Forest. Yeah,
Winston-Salem. That'd be great.
I'm all for having him on the show. So anyways, but we'll get into our special bit, and I apologize for saying your name wrong too, Mitch. But anyways, back to where were we? I have
just fine. If they would have seen the need to invest, they would.
Yeah, like they invested in quarterback. I mean, is an insurance policy, but you never know. So it's great point, Conrad. I'm thinking about Mitch's sister's wedding right now. Still, the pictures were gorgeous, by the way. Go find it. All right. Well, we'll be back.
Okay, let me ask you. Let me take over this conversation just for a second.
Please.
What is the best outcome and the worst outcome for this unit this season?
Yeah, let's say non-injury. I think best outcomes probably. I don't think this is a better unit than what K-State has. Austin Romaine is going to be preseason All Big 12 for a reason. I think it's probably a top 3 unit in the conference. I think that's probably best case outcome. I think somebody will emerge, maybe Baylor or maybe Utah. Somebody will come out of nowhere and kind of supplant Rodriguez in that unit. I think worst case is probably like 12th best in the conference.
Okay.
12th would be pretty bad.
12th would be bad.
Yeah, that would be really bad.
I just think it's health. Can these guys stay healthy? Can they provide, great coverage when they need to, and can they just be leaders? That you got a bunch of newbies on the defensive side of the ball. You need Rodriguez and Roberts to lead those guys well. Even if they're now not the most talented guys on the defense, they're still holdovers and they've been in the program. And I think it's essential that those guys lead well this year and stay healthy. If they do that, it'll be a good group.
12th is too aggressive. I think probably 9th. 9th would be.
You just check your notes. Were you checking your rankings?
Yeah, well, I haven't done my rankings for Tech yet. I'm almost done with TCU. It would be shocking to me. That would be like the worst case scenario. Like
with Jacob Rodriguez, that would be really surprising.
That would be incredibly surprising.
Yeah. I feel like I think best case for me would be Ben Roberts returns to 2023 Ben Roberts, and you have Jacob from last year together. I think that would be. I don't know where that would end up.
My thing with Roberts is like, does he get quicker? Like, does he get more lateral mobility? Because that's like his thing. It's like you just can't move in space. Like, is that just a skill you develop over the offseason?
I personally have gotten slower as I've gotten older. I don't know if Ben feels the same way or not too, but that doesn't seem to always happen.
All respect to Ben Roberts. I've ridden in an elevator with him. He is a monstrous human being. I mean, he is humongous. Like, looks like an NFL linebacker.
Yeah.
But golly, the coverage piece was tough sometimes.
Yeah. Improvement.
I think that's worst case scenario is like Jacob doesn't fit great in the new scheme and he doesn't cause the turnovers that he did last year, and then like Roberts and Curry don't really get any better in pass coverage.
It just doesn't figure it out. Yeah.
Pick on you with tight ends and running backs.
Yeah.
But best case is Jacob continues that, forces a bunch of turnovers, and then someone else steps up in pass coverage.
Yeah. And you got 3 guys that I think should do that.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, it'll be great, man. I'm excited to see the group. Any other final thoughts on linebackers? I don't know how long I can really go on talking line. I don't know. I don't have much more to say. You guys got anything to say?
127 tackles in a season is crazy. Jacob Rodriguez, hopefully he does not have to make that many tackles next season. That is a lot of snaps that dude was having to play, and hopefully he can be closer to like the 90 mark next season. That would be a really good marker. If he's playing all 16 games or whatever we're going to be playing this year, and he gets like, well, maybe at that point I want him to have 127 tackles, but I don't want him having 10 plus tackles a game. That is a lot.
He's a ball hawk, man. He might get it in minimal snaps too. He's that good.
Yep. Well, I mean, there were so many tackles last year that he had that were the result of someone else not making the tackle and him just hustling, so it's like if you just have average tackling across the board and he doesn't have to do what he did last year, that's no slight on Jacob. That's just an improvement everywhere else, which is where we lacked last year.
And I'll just read his stat line just in case you're aware. He had 77 solo tackles last year, 127 combined, 11 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 1 interception, 4 pass breakups, 2 fumble recoveries, 3 forced fumbles, and a fumble return touchdown. He was unbelievably productive for you out of that spot. One of the best seasons you've had there in a long time.
Yeah.
And he'll be one of the best defenders next year.
On the leading tackler note, it could always be worse. I remember that season in Cliff's tenure when I'm pretty sure it was Deshaun Johnson led us in tackles as a safety. That's pretty disastrous. So it could always be worse. I'll take a linebacker.
Yeah,
it
could always be worse.
Especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Especially for Texas Tech defense. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that was a great episode, man. Lots of fun. We've got one more position, well, 2 technically. Secondary and kickers will be coming up or in special teams will be coming up on Monday's episode. They got to include the punter, man. So we'll be back on Monday for that episode as well. And then Clayton, closing the show, you're wearing the Mavs veteran hat again. It's day 1 of Cooper Flag. You're not a new Matt. You're done still? You're not rejoining the Mavs?
I had to pay my respects to the last, 100 days or so.
Okay, yeah. It's
the flag era is here.
The flag era. Raise the flag. It's a new era for Dallas, Matt. You can get a Mavs rookie, 25 to dash. See how long you last this time around. That'd be a good
Perfect.
So,
yeah.
Well, we'll be back on Monday again. Thank you for tuning in. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. It helps us grow and it helps us just get significantly better when you subscribe. And we want to make this the best show possible. So we appreciate that. And if this is your first time to the Broadway Shuffle, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you being here. We will see you guys on Monday. Wreck 'em.